I think that the main division I'm seeing today is like establishment and anti-establishment narrative, and these are like the two trends that are running large in both parties. That in the left, you've got like the establishment Democrats, and then you've got kind of like the anti-establishment progressives. Now, politically, I think that the establishment has like 90 to 95% capture in the Democratic establishment, and the anti-establishment people have like 5 to 10%. But they're very, very, very loud in schools, on Twitter, in protests. If you go to the right, I think it's almost split like 60-40, with 60% being anti-establishment. These are like the Trump supporters. They don't care about government. They don't care about the Republican Party. They barely care about the country. They just will follow Trump wherever. And then 40% are more kind of like pro-establishment, like Republican establishment people. But I feel like that's where the big divides are to try to explain what people are thinking about today. Like when
happened post-Trump? Sorry, finish.
I was gonna say like sometimes I go to events. I remember that I went to an event before where people always pat themselves on the back, where they're like, "Oh, look at how diverse our audience is," you know. And I think I was at some conference in New York, and they were like, "Oh, like," and like half the audience was left and half the audience was right. It's like, wow, look how diverse we're. And then I don't remember if I asked the audience to raise their hands, but I think I asked the question like, "Well, how many people here are like opposed to like the CDC or the FDA? How many of you guys like don't trust the government?" And that's like 95% of people are like, yeah, of course I don't trust it, right? So even though people seem to be a diverse group of people from the left and right, they all have very common sentiment about not trusting the government, not trusting any establishment bodies. Yeah.
Right.
This is actually a very true point too, and I remember watching that debate where that happened, and it was eye-opening because most people do sort of have this left-right dichotomy, but they don't. That's the extent of their understanding. But the truth is, like every single person on that panel was like, "Oh yeah, the government is evil and destroying everything, and like, and all the institutions are corrupt, and there's absolutely nothing good going on ever, and it's like everything is rigged, everyone's out to get you." And it was like a bunch of left wing and right wing people saying this, and like nobody actually disagreed on anything or very little, because that is the dichotomy. Like none of the, like if you actually like go to people in like the real world, like for instance, like the Noah Fisheries thing, like yeah, Noah Fisheries, probably a reliable source, probably does a good job generally speaking. Whole group of people out there would be like, "Oh no, it's completely fake, bro. Like NASA's all fake. The moon landings didn't happen. The Earth is flat. You know, all sorts of weird, crazy things." And they're like, "Oh, but we have left wing and right wing people who believe this." It's like, yeah, but where's the people in the debate and in the conversation who are going to go out there and defend NASA and be like, "You know what? Actually, the moon landings did happen. Actually, you know what? Maybe the Earth is round," and present that side of the conversation. Like I feel like that's something that's really missing in a lot of these spaces, and this kind of makes sense, I think. Because the people who think that the moon landing happened are the majority, but the people who think that don't really care that much, that there are like 10% of people out there who are crazy and don't, or not even just crazy, not even crazy necessarily, but who don't believe that. Like I know people in real life who don't believe that the moon landing was real. I know people in real life who think that 9/11 was an inside job. Like not just like random people I encountered on the street. I mean, like people who I'm close with and who in other areas of their lives are relatively intelligent and successful people. And they hold very weird views like this. And so, I shouldn't say that they're all dumb, because it's not that they're dumb necessarily. It's that they're like highly contrarian or highly skeptical, but only in one direction. Might be a good way to put it. They're highly skeptical of anything involving the government, but then they'll be like very, very, very trusting of like the rando guy they saw on Joe Rogan's podcast. Or even some of these people I know in real life who believe like some of these weirder conspiracy theories, or not even weirder ones, they're relatively mainstream ones. Some of these people are like, it's not that they're getting their fake news from Joe Rogan. It's that they saw a documentary 10 years ago and like, "Oh, well, that seemed convincing." Like they get their news from a huge variety of sources. And like they don't spend like their entire lives like, "Dude, we got to debate the moon landing," like every single time I see them. They're not like that. They're like, it'll come up like once every 5-10 years. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, dude, the moon landing thing, that was not real." Like that's how it'll come up. It won't be like a it won't be something that is a huge part of their identity. It'll just be like a view that they hold, but doesn't really inform their life or their behavior and attitudes in a serious way. Of course, now for some people it does, right? Some people they make their money on YouTube. They because of that they write books based on it. They become like super obsessed with it. Like that's some people. Like that's like the Holocaust denial people on the far right who like end up like destroying their own lives and their own relationships with others because they go so far down this rabbit hole, or like QAnon people. Like there are people who definitely go way too far with it, but for a lot of people too, it's sort of like a, oh yeah, that makes sense to me, and that's like the extent of their understanding. Or I saw a documentary on it. The flag wasn't waving. Why didn't the flag, or the flag was waving in the documentary, or it looked like it was waving? That's convincing to me. The technology at the time, come on, bro. 1960s technology? How the fuck could we go to the moon at 1960s technology, bro? The computers were like the size of a fucking room half the time. Like, oh my god, how is that even possible? They just can't believe it.